Washington football. Woo! Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Burgundy Zone. I am your host, Kyle. I will be joined by my co-hosts here shortly, and Michael Reed and Michael Hall. The title of tonight's episode is Prep for the Raid. The Raiders lost from Las Vegas are coming into town. Great news to hear about the new stadium going to be built in 2030. But to be able to help us prep for the Raiders this coming Sunday with a lot of big news regarding Washington happening this week, we thought we'd bring in a good friend of the show, Mr. David Harrison of the Locked On Commanders podcast. Thank you for joining me on this Friday evening, sir. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great, man. I appreciate the invitation as always.
Yeah, and obviously the biggest news of today was that Dan Quinn announced that Marcus Mariota will be getting the start at quarterback. What is your confidence level with Mariota? Because Cliff said it very well in his presser. I said we have two starting quarterbacks on our roster. That's how we feel, and we feel really good about that. What is your confidence level?
I mean, I kind of mirror that. You know what I mean? Like, I really don't have this like sense of doom or dread with Marcus, leading the team and leading the offense. And obviously we'll see if that feeling persists through the game, right? But just seeing what Marcus was able to do last year in this system with extended opportunities, and I think the best part of the one game, at least the Carolina Panthers game, is there was no expectation that he was going to get those reps. You know what I mean? And every player says, I always prepare like I'm going to play and I always prepare like I'm going to start. But some guys say that and then they get on the field, for the first time and you're like, but do you really prepare that way?
Right.
And Marcus not only came in a very short situation, but came in with honestly like a good amount of pressure on him, right? Like that was a game, the Carolina Panthers game, was like, all right, like the Commanders should be able to handle this opponent pretty easily. Now Jaden goes out. If you lose this thing, not only is there the loss that's got a hangover, but you're the guy that lost it. Like that's how everybody's going to look at this thing, right? Dallas was a little bit different because the plan going into it was to switch at halftime, really, no matter what happened at that point. So there was some knowledge that he was going to go in there. But still, just the way that Marcus has handled himself. And honestly, as we go through the week, like the more and more I get around the guys, and I've said this on multiple platforms, like you would never know this team was going to play without their starting quarterback, but to walk in that locker room. And quite frankly, I've walked into a lot of locker rooms over my years covering the NFL where they were going to be missing their starting quarterback, and you could feel the tension. This locker room, and it's not because they don't love Jaden, right? They absolutely do. But this locker room, you would have never known the starting quarterback was hurt.
That's great to hear. We had a company crab feast, the 8th annual one that they've had, and one of my coworkers, the Cowboys fan, he made a comment like, "Hey, your boy's not playing this weekend. Looks like you guys are going to lose." And him being a Cowboys fan, I said to him, well, he beat you last year. So, take that into consideration. But besides Jaden's injury, David, talk about what you think the biggest injury of the other guys would be and who the backup would be to be able to take some of those snaps.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest injury this weekend is John Bates, and that includes Jaden Daniels. And that's no shade to Jaden Daniels. That's how important John Bates is to this offense. Zach Ertz called him the best blocking tight end he's ever been around. Bobby Johnson today said he's an honorary member of the offensive line room. And he can also catch the ball, right? I think he's an underrated receiver as well. I don't think he's a Kelsey by any means in that fashion, but certainly a solid receiver. But they're gonna miss him. You know what I mean? And I'm really curious to kind of see what they're gonna do to replace him, because quite honestly, like I've kind of been saying all the way leading up to the news that came out, this evening about Andrew Wiley, that maybe Andrew Wiley gets some eligible lineman reps to add on to that offensive line without John Bates. Granted, he goes out there and there's no receiving, ability really. And so you're kind of tipping your hand a little bit, but if you got to tip your hand to block and open up lanes and protect your quarterback, you do what you got to do. And there's nothing that says you can't pass out of that set either. You're just, you're obviously down one lineman or one receiver. But I think that's going to be a huge loss for this team. We're going to see how they handle it, because you ask who's going to replace him. There is no replacement. Like Ben Sennett is not anywhere close to what John Bates is as a blocker. Colson Yankoff is not anywhere close to what John Bates is as a blocker. So there's no replacement. You just have to pivot, and Cliff Kingsbury and the staff have to figure out how they're going to operate this offense without him.
Yeah, like me being I coaching. I did my first stint at coaching this season with middle schoolers of tackle football, and I can't stress enough the importance of the physical, aggressive type of players and that's what John Bates plays with. Not even including his ability to be able to block two guys at the same time, which seems to be something that comes up every game that he's in. But yeah, that's very hard to be able to replicate, and they're going to have their hands full because right now, coming into this game, the Raiders defense, they're fifth overall in rushing yards allowed. And so Washington, if they want to be able to help Mariota a little bit on the ground, that's going to be a tall task for those boys. But what would you, with Wiley starting at guard, that was also announced, which was, I would say, would kind of surprising. I know Allegretti got nicked up in the Thursday night game. Not sure if that has anything to do with it. But with Wiley coming inside, what is your kind of expectation on what the offensive line, what their goal is going to be this weekend?
Yeah, I think it's about stability. You know what I mean? And I'd be lying if I didn't say, like, we've and I say we as a beat, like the conversation's been had multiple times between us reporters on whether or not Wiley gets put in this week, you know what I mean, or not. Chick Hernandez of WSA9 asked DQ on Monday in his one-on-one interview with him, you know, how much patience do you practice before you make a move? Didn't get specific with the move that would be made, right? But DQ on Monday kind of preached patience, right? And said, well, remember in week one, this is the same line that helped us run for 200 yards. Got it. Wednesday, he was asked a similar question. The answer was a little less dedicated to patience. And then just kind of as we went through the week, you just kind of got the vibe like, all right, maybe they're not going to be as patient with that whole situation as possible, or as maybe it was first, you know, leaned into. And I think really what this is about, you know, we'll hear what DQ has to say about it after the game on Sunday. But I think what it's really about is stabilizing that line with Josh Connerly on it. Like Josh Connerly Jr., it's no secret that he's had his ups and downs. Bobby Johnson today was very blunt about those ups and downs. He's a rookie. He's a young guy. Like Laramie Tunsil in his 10th season will have some reps that he's going to lose. So let's let the rookie have some time. But while that rookie is getting those reps and getting that development opportunity to grow, you want the line around him to be as stable as possible, right? That's the foundation he's going to learn upon. And Nick Allegretti is the more athletic, you know, between he and Andrew Wiley, he's the more athletic. Certainly, obviously, with that can get to the second level a little bit faster, a little bit better, all those things. But Andrew Wiley's the more stable presence, right? I think that's really what it boils down to this weekend. It's kind of like, you know, do you want the higher chance of explosive ability, or do you want, you know, less explosive potential, but every single play, rep in, rep out, you kind of know what to expect more. I think that's where they're going to go with, you know, for this one. And possibly, you know, I think depending on how it works out, potentially Atlanta, and then maybe you have Sam Cosmi back for LA. We'll see, you know, how that develops. But yeah, I think that's really what it's about, is just kind of providing that stability as much as possible to let Josh Connerly continue to grow effectively. There's some other things I saw on tape that I think could lead to it as well. But I don't think you want me to go on a 30-minute combo block soapbox, so I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, that definitely wasn't a thing on Thursday night. There were a couple plays in that regard where like you talked about, where there's two linemen that go against one guy. A lot of the fan base gets this confused with the calling of a double team, which is not really the case. It's just a combo block to help the long block to be able to get stabilized before they get to the second level. And against Green Bay, it was like one guy was taking up both blocks and they weren't getting to that second level, which was destroying the run game. Which is obviously going to be huge this weekend. So hopefully they're able to clean that up. But defensively, that was another thing. And listening to Joe Witt kind of talk about it, saying it wasn't really a schematic issue. It was much more so of a personnel issue of actually utilizing what they're being taught and what they're supposed to do on a given play. And one that stood out to me, David, was the Marshawn Lattimore crosser, where I've never seen this before, where he goes above the wide receiver and the mesh going across, and it takes him 10 yards deep downfield, and the guy's wide open. I can understand on that regard, but is that a big concern for you defensively of what happened on Thursday night bleeding over?
I'm less concerned about that kind of thing. Honestly, I think Marshawn was just trying to do something different for the sake of doing something different. Like what we've been doing isn't working. You know, we know that they're basically onto us, and they're calling these things to beat us, and it's just, you know, what can I do to try to change something, right? And if he plays trail, he ends up behind him. If he doesn't have the speed to catch up to him, then the
Right.
dude's off and running. And there's a lot of reasons these guys do what they do. I'm more, I wouldn't say concerned. Like I feel like they've had time, and I had confidence in the coaching staff to get it fixed, and they know what the problem was. But it was more so in their zone coverages. Look, this is a fire zone team. You know what I mean? They love to blitz. They love to blitz out of that zone look, and it leaves them with gaps potentially. And the thing about defense, this, like a lot of people know this, but to reiterate, it's truly 11 guys doing one job. You know what I mean? And if one guy's out of place, when you're playing against a quarterback that, one, is intelligent like Jordan Love is, two, has the arm to make every throw, and three, has time, right? That's a big thing. He's gonna find the open guy, right? Like you talk about that route. I know a lot of us have been talking about that 57-yarder Tucker Kraft early in the game. Listen, like what the Green Bay Packers, and I can't tell you what LaFleur and Jordan Love were doing, right? But I can just tell you, generally speaking, traditionally, when you see an offense run a flood concept the way they did with four receivers on that side, running receiver from the left side to the right side to create that 4-by-1 alignment, typically you're not doing that to free up the seam because you understand that the defense is going to put on a push, and in that push call they're going to put somebody in that seam specifically to protect against it, because those flood concepts with seam routes up the zone are classic fire zone beaters. Like as a fire zone defensive team, you expect those things to come. And to be honest, and I think Joe even kind of talked about this, the Giants ran it against them. They ran it against themselves in training camp. You know what I mean? Like this is a very common concept. The Raiders, I went back and from my count, the Raiders have run a similar concept to that 11 times in 2 weeks. So they're going to see it. It's a very, fire zone, cover three, whatever you want. Like fire zone is a very common scheme in today's NFL. So you're going to see it. They're going to see it. They've trained it. They've tasked it, right? What happened on that play is the way they got into it, the way that the Packers, and that's the nuance. Every team does it a little bit different. The way the Packers did it confused somebody. It confused one guy. Because it confused that one guy, he wasn't where he was supposed to be. It led to the big play. The good news is they've since figured it out. They've coached it. They've trained it. They've learned it. And, that player and that defense, they're ready to make up for it this week. And I think that they're going to be able to.
Totally agree with you. And now we are joined by my other co-host, Mr. Michael Reed, and his beautiful face. I asked David about Marcus Mariota, about the biggest injury loss, and Wiley starting at guard. Do you have a question for David?
Well, Kyle, I was very excited to ask the Andrew Wiley question, so thank you for taking that one from me. But one of the big shocks this season, and I mean, granted, look, it's still early. I know everybody wants to be Chicken Littles, and after 1 week against a rolling team that we played better against than the Lions did, to be fair, everybody wants to say that the sky's falling at this time. But what's one player who has kind of disappointed has been Frankie Louvu. You still see him flying all around the place. You still see him, but he's not finishing tackles. What does he need to do, and do you think this is just a mental thing, or what do you think is going to end up happening with Frankie?
Yeah, so this combination of things. One thing is, I believe Joe had said this in the presser. If he didn't, we've definitely talked about it in a way that I can talk about it publicly. Like they're attacking him. You know what I mean? Like Frankie, like we spent all offseason talking about nobody's gonna be surprised by the Commanders. Everybody's gonna see the Commanders coming. Well, guess what? Everybody sees Frankie Louvu coming now, and they are attacking Frankie Louvu. And some of the things, some of the things he's got to clean up, and he knows this. So talk to him about it. He knows it. And he's gonna get it. You know what I mean? But some of it is also, and this isn't him talking, this is me talking for him, so I could be wrong. But I'm pretty confident that some of it, because I watched the tape, he is just like, he sees it coming. He sees the double team. He sees the big dude running at him that they're trying to pin him down with, whatever it is coming, and he's just doing whatever he can to get away from it, and it throws him a little bit off center. You know what I mean? And by the time he gets to the ball, like partially the fact that he even gets around that concept, whatever they're trying to game plan for him, to even make a play on the ball carrier is kind of impressive. But because of what he had to do to get there, he's now so off center, and I would say a little out of control maybe sometimes, that it's just it's hard for him to make a clean play. Part of it is schematics. Joey Jr. has talked about, he did talk about this in the press conference, like they're going to try to scheme up some things to prevent teams from being able to do that against him. Now that you see what they're doing, and that's part of the problem with this kind of stuff, is like until they start doing it, it's hard to counter it, fully. So Now that they've seen it a couple weeks, they're going to try to counter with some schemes. But also Frankie's just this is kind of his new normal, right? Like this is the new NFL that he's going to play in, and he's got to just kind of figure out a way to navigate it. The upside is, I think, like some of the side effects to this, some of the inside defensive line penetration you're seeing is coming because of this. Some of the Dorrance Armstrong penetration and the fact that he's finishing faster because he's getting penetration faster is coming because of this. So if those other guys can kind of capitalize on the attention that Frankie Louvu is getting, it's going to force offenses to play a little bit honest and maybe not commit as much to that to him as possible. It's actually very similar to what we saw last year. Not in a way that opposing offenses were scheming against Frankie Louvu, but the first couple of games, I think Frankie got his first sack in week 4, maybe. I think it took about 4 weeks for Frankie to really make his first splash play. And I know a lot of my listeners, because as soon as Frankie signed, I was sounding the horn, man. I was pumped. But I covered the NFC South, so I knew who Frankie was.
Right.
And the first couple of weeks, like the stats just weren't there, and people were like, I don't know, like, dude, like you talked about this guy, and he's really not showing up. When you turn on the tape, he was showing up. He was blowing up screens. He was blowing up, read option plays, but he wasn't getting the tackle. He wasn't getting the TFL. You know what I mean? He was freeing up other guys. That's kind of what's happening right now. Like, and I'm not trying to take anything away from Dorrance or Javon, certainly, or anybody else, but some of what's happening up front is happening because teams are honing in on guys like Frankie to prevent them from being game wreckers. I think it'll balance out eventually. We'll see. I'm really interested. It's actually one thing. As you can probably tell by how long I'm talking about this, that I'm going to be watching for Sunday because Joe said they're going to start scheming to get Frankie free. So I'm curious to see how they're going to do that, because that's an area where I know what I know about football, but I don't know a lot. And this is one thing, like I couldn't tell you, what the answer is to get him freed up. So I'm really curious to see what Joe Wood and his staff do. To your point, you brought up Frankie. It's kind of the same thing with Terry last season. Like the first 2 weeks of the season, Terry didn't do. He has better numbers this year, and fans are very disappointed with what he's doing. But he's actually doing better through 2 weeks than he did last season.
Well,
yeah, and they're throwing a lot of doubles at him right now as well. Right. Like the Packers and the Giants have spent a lot of attention towards him right now. So yeah, it's very similar. Absolutely.
And Joe Witt did talk about that in his presser. And saying, regarding Frankie Louvu, saying last year they didn't really do that to him. He didn't go into specifics of what that was, but I understand what you mean, saying this year they certainly are, and he has to get adjusted to that. And one of the things that Dan Quinn has always preached about from linebackers is staying square with the line of scrimmage, and maybe Frankie trying to be able to get around those blocks is not allowing him to be as square as he needs to be, a lot like Reed. But my next question for you, though, with Noah Brown out, who do you think is going to take a bunch of those reps? We saw Jalen Lane getting that 4th down ball against Green Bay, which a lot of the fan base kind of questioned. But Noah Brown being the PI king, his blocking ability is really good. It's hard to, just like John Bates, it's hard to replicate somebody like that. So who do you think is going to get a lot of those reps?
My gut says Chris Moore. I think Chris Moore is going to get a lot of those reps. I think, I want to say Jalen Lane, to be honest with you. And I think if I'm wrong, it would be Jalen Lane. But I just don't know that Jalen Lane is there yet to get that big of a chunk of the offensive reps, to be honest with you. But again, they know that obviously a lot better than I do. They've had much more time to prepare for this game, certainly, than they did the last. So I wouldn't hate to see Jalen Lane getting it. But Chris Moore's a kind of vet. Like, he's just going to do whatever it takes, man. Like, whatever they ask him to do, he's going to go out there and do the best of his ability. He's going to drop some passes. Unfortunately, it's kind of the reason that, he's been in the league a long time, but he's never really kind of been the dude. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But as far as, you want a guy like, you hear Dan Quinn, Adam Peters, like a guy who's going to quote unquote get down the way that they want him to. Chris Moore is that guy.
You got something, Reed? I know you're trying to mute it. All right.
Yeah, my bad. I'm trying to unmute it because the baby. Nope. There we go.
Got a special guest.
But yeah, special guest. But so you mentioned John Bates. I mean, we talked about him being out. What does this mean for a Colston Yankoff, for a Ben Sinnott? Somebody like Ben Sinnott, of course, 2nd round pick. We all know he hasn't had the season that a lot of people, or the beginning to a career that a lot of people would have hoped for from that. What do you think? Who do you think gets the most snaps out of those two?
I mean, I think Ben is going to get more snaps.
Okay. Yeah.
It's we were talking about this a little bit. Like, it's really going to just depend on how they want to adjust not having John Bates, because Neither of those guys does what John
That's
Bates does.
such a
You know
hole
what I
too
mean?
without Big, right?
Yeah. So I mean, do you spread out the defense and put a tight end, a split out tight end that's not Zach Ertz out there? Honestly, you know what I mean? Certainly you could make that argument. I would love to see Cliff Kingsbury use Ben as kind of that use check in type of player. I mean, Adam Peters specifically said when they drafted him, he's a use check type. We've seen it a little bit, and it's been good when we like don't get me wrong, like when you see Ben working as a fullback, H back, whatever it is, like it's been good. It's just that's not really Cliff's game, and that's not really his scheme. So it might be a situation where like maybe you drafted a guy that doesn't really fit what your coach is trying to do, and your coach isn't going to force it in type of situation. But this might be the opportunity as well to unleash some of that. I don't know. I mean, I would love to see it, but the problem is like you throw Ben, you throw Colson in line, and you try to make him a blocker. It's just not going to be effective.
Absolutely agree with you. Now to wrap this up, David, I only have a couple more questions for you. But Preston Smith, a familiar face, got signed this week. Dan Quinn, I brought this up in our last pod that Jalen Holmes was floating around there as well. And it looks like they did call him up. So do you think that Preston is going to be active for this game, given that it was such a short amount of time they got acclimated? But if he does play, what do you think that our expectations should be on how he's utilized?
Yeah, I think he could be active. It depends on if they call anybody up from the practice squad. So right now they've got 3 guys that are already out for this game, right? They don't call anybody up from the practice squad. They got to identify 2 more. And off the top of my head is probably Kane Madrano and Ali Cajo. So in that case, Preston Smith could be available, could be active. How much work is he going to get? Probably very specific, like a specific package, a specific scenario. He just hasn't been here very long, hasn't been here to learn the calls, learn the checks, things like that. Fortunately, on the D line, you don't need to know as many of the checks, right? Like
right.
The checks impact coverage a lot more than they impact the rush. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But there are obviously some calls up front that have to be made as well. And, I think it's a very specific amount of work that he would get if he gets any. I think a lot of that also, too, is going to depend on how Javonte Jean-Baptiste, Jacob Martin, and I think Javon Kinlaw is going to slide outside much more than he already has this season as part of that plan to replace Dietrich Wise Jr. And even that is going to depend on how well Johnny Newton and Eddie Goldman do manning the middle with Javon, slid out wide. Because what you don't want to do is, the interior defensive line has been a massive strength these first 2 weeks, even against Green Bay. It was really strong. You kick Javon Kinlaw outside and Johnny Newton falters or Eddie Goldman can't get the job done. And now all of a sudden you might have made your edge a little bit better, but your middle is soft, and that's not how you want to go about it either. So it'll be interesting. I don't know what the full plan is. I think Preston certainly has a chance of getting in there this week. I'm much more confident about him getting involved next week in Atlanta than I am this week. But, he's a good dude. He seems like a good dude. I wasn't here when he was here before, so I've never covered him before. It was really fun to see everybody who had covered him before. They're in the locker room, and, you'd have thought Elvis Presley was walking in because they were all just waiting by his locker, waiting for him to show up. And the scrum was massive. And, even one of the PR, like I wasn't in it. One of the PR people said, you don't want to get in there. I said, no, like this is kind of a reunion. You know what I mean? Like I'm going to let everybody, I'm going to let the reunion happen out of respect for those folks. And even like Nikki Jabala, you know what I mean? She wasn't here when Preston was here, and her and I both were kind of standing outside the scrum. We were watching, listening, certainly, but all the people who had covered him before, they were in the scrum. And it was a really cool moment. And then I introduced myself to him after the fact. Seems like a good straight up dude. Certainly can see the dog in him. You know what I mean? That DQ wants to have on the field. So looking forward, whenever that is, this week, next week, whenever it is, looking forward to seeing him get some action.
Yeah, he's definitely like a living time capsule for a lot of the fan base and, of course, the media members as well. Just seeing, I'm sure that his reaction to the difference in the practice facility, it was something to be taken into account.
He's happy.
Yeah, absolutely. My next question for you, Big Bill is getting the start this weekend. Obviously, Chris Rodriguez looks like that he's going to be suiting up. How do you think the running back shares are going to play out this weekend against the Raiders?
Yeah, I think Bill's going to have a lot to say about that. You know what I mean? I think the better he does early, the more it'll go his way. If he's shaky, anywhere, then I think that's where you'll see some of these other guys come in, especially. And, Cliff said this in his press conference off the ball type of stuff. Like everybody, he kind of reminds me like Steph Curry. We all marvel at Steph Curry and what he can do. But, unless you like really watch the game closely, you don't realize this dude is a magician off the ball as well. Like when he doesn't have the ball, he does a lot of things that people don't really notice in the highlight reels that get him there. Well, Bill's got to be able to do that dirty work. You know what I mean? He's got to be able to catch the ball. He's got to be able to pick up blitzers and get in there and get in, stick his face in the fan, all the cliches that you want. Because if he can't or won't do it, we know Jeremy McNichols will, right? You go back to Cincinnati, that's like the highlight, of his pass blocking resume is that play against Cincinnati where without him, Jaden's getting sacked instead of throwing a touchdown. So there's that. Chris Rodriguez is another one of them type of players. Like if they tell him to go back there and take on Max Crosby one-on-one full speed and just stand in his way, he's going to do it. I don't know how successful he's going to be because Max Crosby's a beast, but he's going to do it. So Bill's got to, you at least got to show the bravery. Let's be real, man. No running back wants to pass block. Like nobody wants to pick up a blitz. You know what I mean? You don't want to do that.
You're absolutely
but you
right.
have to. You have to do it. So do I think Bill has it in him? Absolutely. But we'll see. I think the more Bill does that way, the more he'll get. Jeremy's going to get his touches as a veteran. He's going to be a stabilizing presence. Chris, I'll be honest with you guys, he's going to be active. He's going to be suited up, and I'm excited for him. A lot of people are excited for him. I know he's locked in. He's ready to go. I can see him getting 3 touches. I can see him getting 13. You know what I mean? I think game flow is going to have to do a lot with it, and Bill's going to have a lot to do with it as well. So I don't really have a lot of expectations for Chris in this game, but I have hopes, I should say.
Absolutely, and it's just so funny you talked about putting your body out there because in our game yesterday, they were killing us on the run to the outside. I had to tell the linebackers and corners, I know you don't want to get up in there. You're trying to shy away from it, but you have to sacrifice your body to get in the way, man. And It's one of those things for running backs is those are some big dudes, but you got to take up the bill. Last question I have for you, David. Keys to beating the Raiders. Right now, the Raiders are 31st in points per game on offense, 29th in the red zone, but they're 11th in passing yards and 31st in rushing yards. And giving up sacks, they're 23rd in the league right now, giving up 8.3% of the time on passing downs. So what would you say the keys are?
I think you got to attack the edge. You know what I mean? Where the Raiders defense has been weak against run is on the edges. Marcus Mariota is not Jaden Daniels, but he can do some damage there as well. A good amount of those edge rushing yards they've given up are to quarterbacks. You know what I mean? So it's not like every snap a running back is hitting the edge and finding success. This team has an athletic front line, so they should be able to kick out, do some of those things really well, seal off Max Crosby. Don't let him mess things up from behind. Do all those things and try to find yardage that way. Plus, flowing left and right, that's where Ja'Cory Cross-Merritt can really use his vision, his cut, his ability to burst through the hole and find open space. So I think that's one of the primary means, offensively to get things rolling. Defensively, look, I know Geno Smith said in his press conference this week that he knows he's put the ball into jeopardy too much and he needs to do a better job of doing that. Here's the thing. Geno Smith has always done that. That's been Geno Smith's MO. It's why he flamed out in New York. He did really well in Seattle, but with Vegas, he doesn't have Tyler Lockett. He doesn't have DK Metcalf. He doesn't have Jackson Smith and Jigba. He's got a better tight end, but as an overall arsenal, he's actually coming in at a disadvantage. This Washington Commanders defense has got to take advantage of that. I'm not really doing bold predictions this season, but I got a little froggy and I made a bold prediction for this game. I think the third Raiders possession in this game, you're going to have an opportunity for the Commanders defense to come away with an interception. They got to bring it in. If they don't, Geno is also the kind of quarterback you don't give a second chance to. Yeah. If he throws you an interception and you drop it, he's liable to throw a touchdown on the very next play. So I think that's going to be something to look out for. And then self-discipline, man. You know what I mean? The eye discipline, the penalties. I don't think Marshawn Lattimore has actually been nearly as bad as a lot of people think that he has or say that he has. But I think that the overall kind of struggles, if you want to call them that, with the penalties, like people love a dog and they love a guy that takes nothing from anybody, but you got to win with it. You know what I mean? You can't be out there costing your team 15 yards and you're losing and you're not, stopping your opposing receivers. So Marshawn, he knows his reputation. He knows the refs are looking at him. He's got to find a way to clean that up in the meantime. And not just him, but everybody, right? Your backup quarterback in there, you're dealing with a lot of injuries. You can't afford the dumb penalties. So that's the third one for me.
Yeah, definitely in that Green Bay game, it was evident that he was getting angry with getting picked on early, and his frustrations were getting a little bit too much of him post-snap. Liked it to happen during the snap. But David, before you get out of here, would you like to plug your social media handle in your show, sir?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can follow me on X at DHarrison82. Locked On Commanders is a show 5 days a week. I'm actually, this season, I'm also doing a bonus episode on regular weeks where I'm gonna get my game plan. I'm gonna get it's definitely X's and O's. So if you're not an X's and O's person and you don't want to be an X's and O's person, I forgive you for skipping it. I get it. It's definitely X's and O's heavy. I'm not telling you I'm right. I'm just telling you what I think. And then WSA9.com for a lot of my written work. And actually, we just launched Commander Squad. It's a new Nick Ashush is the host. I guess he's a DC radio personality for a while. I just met him doing this project. He seems like a good dude. Anthony Armstrong, former Skins receiver, is on there dropping the player perspective. It's a lot of fun. That goes live right after every single game. So yeah,
we just talked to Anthony last week, and he let me know about it. Yeah, Nick Ashush, he did some work with 106.7 and 980, if I'm not mistaken. So
that's
definitely
what
a
we've been
voice
told,
that we recognize. Yeah.
Yeah. JP Finley gave him a glowing, not recommendation because he was already hired, but like, he vouched for him, I guess I should say. And JP's good in my book. Nick has been great. And anytime, that's why I appreciate you guys. Anytime I get to talk football without having to do the hosting duties, I'll take it.
My man, absolutely love it. Have a good night, David. Enjoy it and enjoy the game on Sunday, sir.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you guys.
Man.
Thank you, sir. All right, everybody. We just spoke with the man, Mr. David Harrison. Always appreciate his time. And also, always appreciate Reed's time for being here.
James.
Few and far between when we're able to talk to Mr. Reed solo. He got his sidekick there with him, which I do think is ironic given that, how much headache Reed probably gave to his father. And just seeing him with his son there, it just shows you.
I was a goddamn angel. I will tell you that. I wasn't a menace at all. Unlike this kid who tries climbing in the sink. That's always fun. James.
I saw him turning out the lights on you, which was absolutely hysterical. Hall's trying to get here. He's got to set up his little computer station and everything with everybody home. But I did see him at the crab feast today, and he was on another planet, and so I was surprised that he even responded. I thought he'd be passed out by now.
A crab feast? What were you doing to that poor man, that poor homeless man? What were you doing?
No, but it is really terrible. Our one coworker had to show the newer kind of guy how to actually peel the crab and everything. And he's like doing it for him. Like, dude, and mask, like, you want to put it in your mouth and feed him like a bird next? Come on, man. Just let him figure it out.
What I always tell people is I'm like, just eat through the shells. Just fucking munch it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Do it.
But let's get into some fan
questions.
Feels
good coming out, too.
Let's get into some fan questions that were submitted. This first one was submitted on Twitter by our guy, Gesture Average Fly Guy. The biggest question of the day for him, will we see the coveted Raise Hell 5 jersey on the practice field today and be a full participant?
He's talking about Jaden. Well, I mean, Jaden's not playing.
Yeah, he was limited. No, but I read the wrong one. I expect Marcus to start. That being said, unlike the Green Bay game, I expect to see a lot more rushing attempts, which will make it easier on Marcus. Our running backs now are Chris Rodriguez, McNichols, and Bill. Practice squad being Edwards and Edmonds. What's the rushing attack look like versus the Raiders?
I think you're going to get a good dosage of most of all of them. I think that they're going to try to get Bill going early and often. I think in short yardage situations, you're going to be seeing McNichols and Rodriguez. I do think that they want Bill, like Cliff Kingsbury said, to be able to prove that he can do other things instead of just run the ball, that he can do the things when the ball's not in his hands or when the play's not designed for him, picking up blitzes, catching the ball, just running routes, doing whatever it is he's got to do. But I do think that they want to give Bill every benefit of the doubt because he has been the best. Running back, he leads the team in rushing right now. He leads all rookies. I know that's not saying much when Ashton Genty gets 20 yards a game, but he's really somebody that I think that we should be getting a heavy dosage of Bill, especially since you can attack the outside of this defense. You can get him the ball on stretches, you can get him the ball on tosses, you can get him kind of outside the guards over towards the tackles, and that's when you really kind of see him shine.
Yeah, and of course, anybody watching, if you have any questions, just feel free to ask them in the chat on YouTube, and I'll be able to see and ask them for you. Fly Guy, I do expect that the running game, it's going to be hard, but I do expect them to have that kind of unique aspect to the running game again, where they're kind of being able to, similar to what we saw against the Giants, where you're seeing Debo come in and kind of just be that real distracting piece, and to say the linebackers have to register, is Debo getting the ball or is it in the backfield, just to give you a little bit extra time. And I think, honestly, the running backs, I don't want to shoo them away, But I would say the addition of Andrew Wiley up front might be a reason for them to attack the perimeter of the edges. If you go back to last year, Andrew Wiley was very good at right tackle of being able to pull to the outside and lead block and be able to have that seal block on the perimeter on the outside towards the sideline. And so I would expect that they're going to be able to utilize that again in a heavy dose with Andrew Wiley being able to get out there. Right now, the Raiders are fourth on defense in the league of giving up rushing yards per game. Only giving up on average 70.5 per game. But like Reed kind of talked about, their offense, they are 31st in the league right now with averaging only 62 yards per game. So for Washington, it's how can you be able to run the ball consistently, effectively, but also let Mariota be able to navigate things. You don't want to be too one-sided. And, of course, balance is the name of the game, and that coaching staff knows that all too well. But I would expect that perimeter to be getting attacked again, just trying to slow down Max Crosby as much as freaking possible. And you don't want to discount the other guys. Now, the next question from Just Your Average Fly Guy, Reed. How important is the running game to y'all if, indeed, Marcus starts?
I think no matter what in this offense, the running game is just so key because it lets Cliff kind of build off of it. And you see, just obviously it's a different threat with Mariota back there than having Jaden, even though Mariota is fairly nimble. But everything can come. Like, this offense is so much more dangerous when the running game is going because the play action, it's the defense is like, who do we stop? Especially when Jaden's in there. But even with Marcus, it's essential, especially you're having a backup quarterback in there. You want to be able to establish the run. It just helps in really just every facet of the game. So I think that's honestly on the offensive side of the ball, I think that is the most important thing is kind of getting the running game going.
Yes, it doesn't even have
in particular. By the way,
it doesn't even have to do. It doesn't even have anything to do with Marcus starting. That rushing attack is vital for any offense that you're utilizing to be able to force those linebackers and DBs to be able just to cheat up just a little bit. It just gives them something to think about. I say this all the time, Fly Guy. You have to confuse the defense, and the best way to be able to do that is the rocking chair aspect with having the threat of the balanced running game and then also being able to hit the play action over top. That's the best game plan anyone can ever have, is your running game doing very well, and then you hit that play action, and they're not expecting you're able to hit over top. That is something that every single offense is trying to do, and obviously it's the NFL. They have a lot of good players out there. But obviously for this game, it's massively important for Washington to get the run game going because – last year it was very much so more on Jaden. He was our leading rusher last year, of course. But it was like it was either we were throwing the ball or Jaden was doing something on the ground. And I stopped snoring. And the one thing I will say is if you're able to run the football fundamentally well, that's something you could put in your back pocket to always have. And Doc Walker has said this before when he was playing. They would tell the defense what play was coming, where it was going, and say, do what you can to stop it. And when you have that kind of confidence and mentality in the running game, you are a very, very tough team to beat. And obviously that is the goal, and hopefully Washington will be able to get there sooner rather than later. Now our next question, this was submitted by our boy Scott Hartley, the UK Fan of the Year. Oi! Thank you, Scott. He asks, Reed, who needs to step up to fill the void following injuries?
You can go any number of ways. I'm sure you'll pick a different one, but I'm going to go with Cliff Kingsbury, not just with the Marcus Mariota, Jaden Daniels situation, but the tight end situation. John Bates, and especially we talk about the running game. John Bates is such a good blocker in the run game, in the pass game, you name it. That's a huge, if he's not going, that's a huge loss right there. And you got to figure out a way to make up for it. Because like we talked about earlier, these Ben Sinnott and Colson Yankoff they have abilities. They have pass catching abilities, especially, and they're versatile. But they're not John Bates. Like, how are you going to offset that? You can't really replace a guy like that. So it's going to be up to Cliff to kind of get creative with it, whether that's bringing in a 6-0 lineman on occasion or what have you. But Cliff's going to have to get very, very creative with that situation.
Yeah, and especially like in the red zone or goal line, you could maybe see somebody like George Font coming in just to add that extra lineman out there just to help you out just a little bit. I think you're absolutely right about Ben Sinnott and being utilized because coming out of the draft, I highlighted this a lot regarding Ben. People said like he's a great blocker. It's like he is a great blocker when he has momentum flowing with him, i.e., you're using those kind of toss plays. He's the lead blocker, getting out of front. He's pushing somebody outside, having that momentum with him. The inline blocking where like your hand is in the dirt, you got to go one-on-one against the guy in front of you. He's not the best, and that's where John Bates really is utilized well at. So credit to you because it's not something that's easily replaceable whatsoever. The other person I'll say is it's definitely Jalen Lane, and I don't think that Jalen Lane has had a bad start. But if Jalen Lane is really going to plant the flag to showcase that he is the man that they drafted, that really take that next step in showing that the reliability and confidence building kind of aspect, I think this is the game for it. And we do have to go back to training camp. Marcus Mariota being with the second team, that's a lot of where Jalen Lane was getting his run in practice. And so they might actually have that comfortability relationship already where they're on the same page and easy to get the ball rolling. And that's the best thing possible for this passing attack. If you're able to take some eyes away from Terry and Debo, you're really cooking with some gas there, man. So I do think Jalen Lane is one guy, but you can't go wrong with showcasing Bill because Eckler's injury. You know, I know that's an easy one to pull, but this is another big opportunity for that young man. And I know that everyone was griping that he didn't get a lot of run in that playoff game, and the Thursday night game. It felt like a playoff game. The Thursday night game. This is really a good opportunity for him going against a really good rushing defense. This is the time for him to do it. Yeah. Now, the next question from Scott Reed. What is the biggest improvement you want to see from the team on Sunday?
Ooh, so I'm going to go on the other side of the ball for the first time. I'm going to go with defense, and it's going to be a lack of penalties, just dumb penalties like we talked about Marshawn and stuff, just really seeing them step up because we know the ability. Trey Amos has been fantastic, but Sainer still, he struggled at times. He hasn't looked like we're used to, especially like all throughout camp, how well he was playing. I just want to see that secondary kind of just become who they should be and who they have the talent to be, who I think they will ultimately be this season, not just in terms of penalties, but giving up yardage because we see like we see the defensive line playing so good, like being able to get penetration from the inside, and we see like Dorrance Armstrong getting all these pressures, getting to the quarterback finally. Like if the secondary, the corners particularly, plays where they should and where they have the ability to, then I think this defense is going to be terrifying. Another thing I will say, another caveat here is it's been 2 games. And we're coming off of a bad one. We're coming off of a very disappointing one, I think. But the Packers, were rolling. The Packers' offenses look fantastic so far through the start of the season. And let's not forget, we dominated the Giants when we played them on the defensive side of the ball. So people just need to pump the brakes a little bit.
Cowboys
look what they did
with
Dallas, right?
Was insane, dude.
Yeah, exactly. And we dominated the Giants on defense. So I think we'll bounce back. We'll be all right. This is a perfect get back game. So,
yeah, and with the Giants, like it's funny because I see a lot of similarities with the Raiders as I did the Giants week 1, where it seems like you have these new additions, especially the quarterback and the running back position, but like they're trying to gel and get on the same page. And it was obvious the Giants didn't, right? But week 2, It looks like they actually started clicking and being able to get the ball downfield, pushing it downfield. Trayvon Diggs was cooked chicken out there. But like that, you don't want that to happen to you, right? You don't want that to happen to you this weekend against the Raiders. The get-right game for Geno, for Jacoby Myers, Brock Bowers, Michael Mayer.
For Genti to finally be who he should be. Yeah.
Right. And like that, the one area of that aspect is you have to control the trenches. And that's exactly what they did against New York. Our defensive line was flying around.
Dominated.
They were impactful. They were aggressive. And so, Scott, I'll say what do I want to see improvement is, I don't want to say effort, like Anthony Armstrong told us the other day. I think it's the aggressiveness at being able to inflict their will up on that in the trenches, controlling things, to be able to make Geno have to make, because I think Geno has that kind of panic aspect to him where he
will make mistakes,
turning the ball over. And so you have to force that. If you allow him to sit back and diagnose, Geno will pick you apart. He's got a very strong arm, and they have capable receivers to be able to do that. But I think number one is the aggressiveness, to come out playing with your hair on fire, because good things typically happen when you do that. Now, the next question is from Tim Towner in the Discord. He asks, I am assuming Bates will be inactive. If so, Ertz does not get injured and plays the whole game. Who will get more tight end snaps, Reed, Sinnott, or Yankoff?
So this is kind of basically what I had asked earlier. I I think that just judging from this preseason, I think that Yankoff has probably shown more, but I do think that they want to get Sinnott rolling. We know what kind of ability he has. That's why he was such a high draft pick. I think that that's there. I think that Cliff Kingsbury is going to try to get him the ball a few times pretty early on to try to get him kind of rolling. So I'm gonna let me go with Ben Sinnott. I hope so. I like
Yeah.
them both.
Yeah, obviously Ben is gonna be needing those reps, and as much as anyone likes to say all they care about is winning and everything like that, I do believe that, but I also do believe that they want to see what they drafted. They want to be able to get and see what they actually have before moving forward with anything. So I'll say that it's probably a short leash, but I'd go with Sinnott. And Sinnott has been getting some playing time. He's getting the
Yeah.
ball thrown to him, especially in the preseason, obviously, but in week 1 as well. He had a very nice catch that he had. He's doing well in the blocking game out in the perimeter, and so I do think that Sinnott is the easy answer here. That's not shying away from what Colson Yankoff is or was possibly able to do, but he's also vital to special teams. So you don't want to overwork the young man. Somebody you want to keep fresh for special teams. It's very important, speaking as a special teams coach myself. But the next question from Tim Towner. Snaps, part 2. If Noah Brown is inactive, who will get more wide receiver snaps? Chris Moore or Luke McCaffrey?
You know what? I'm going to go with, again, just following my heart. I want to see Luke McCaffrey. Luke McCaffrey does a good job getting open, as we know. That's something, and he's another one of those guys who, like, you get the opportunity here to step up and really make some plays. I think that Luke McCaffrey is somebody that kind of similar to Sinnott. They want to see exactly what he can do, and I'm going to go with Luke.
I think it's Chris Moore. And Chris Moore's grab week 1 against the Giants was absolutely amazing. For somebody that was getting crapped on a lot for his preseason work,
Yeah.
dropping damn near everything. All respect to Chris Moore, of course, but he was he was dropping like flies out there in preseason. But he didn't drop that huge throw.
He was dropping like your pants when you get near the boys.
And he did a great job week 1. And so I think that already that confidence level is high with the coaching staff of Chris Moore. And he does have that kind of body type that would mimic more so of what Noah Brown offers you than Luke McCaffrey. But just like with Ben Sinnott, I do think that Chris Moore is probably on a short leash. And if he comes out having the slick
Drops.
hands, not being able to hold on to the football, I do think that they're going to put Luke McCaffrey in there a little bit more. And Luke has been getting run himself, but so has Chris Moore. They haven't been shying away from him. And so I definitely think that's going to be Chris Moore on a short leash. And that's no disrespect to Chris Moore, what he's able to do, but you got to have backup plans. And it's crazy that Washington's injuries came in a very, very quick way.
Yeah.
When
Yeah,
it
that
rains,
was-
it pours.
Yeah, I was literally just thinking, I was like, we got through the preseason with really no injuries. Week 1, we were good, and then week 2, we got slammed.
Yeah, and that short week obviously was a legitimate issue. But Reed, to wrap this up, let's get some predictions. Unsung hero for the game.
Unsung hero, I'm going to go with somebody who you talked about earlier. I'm going to go with Jalen Lane in a few different ways. I think he may come up with a big catch or two, but I also think he's finally going to get some decent yardage on punt returns and things of that nature. I think he's going to be very essential to us coming away with the W.
I think the unsung hero will be Will Harris. He got picked on against the Packers a couple times, and I think that's somebody that is going to be vitally important going against Brock Bowers and Michael Mayer. And so this is going to be something huge for this defense. And I think Will Harris is going to be somebody that we're all talking about because of the coverage on the tight ends. They have a big task this weekend going against those tight ends, and that's a lot of their offense is based out of those two tight ends. So you got to be able to have the playmakers on the ball to be able to do that. And hopefully Will Harris will be able to come down and stifle some things, in my personal opinion. Now, Reed, score predictions.
Ooh, I'm going to go with 24-16. Washington's going to end up getting that W.
All right, Marcus Mariota coming in to save the day for everybody. I'm all about it, my friend. I do think it's going to be more low scoring esque. I do think it's going to be something along the lines of 20 to 10 or 13. I'm not shying away from that Raiders offense, but I don't. If you're going to look at the Green Bay game and what happened, do I really think that the Raiders offense, without that running game being high octane, without being able to be influential and being a huge piece, I don't think that Raiders passing attack is going to be enough to put up a lot of points. And Washington has done a good job at this point of bending but don't breaking. I mean, as much as bad as that Thursday night game was, they really made it hard on them to actually score when it wasn't a big play. And so I think Washington continues that ability to be able to limit easy touchdowns in the red zone, and it's going to be difficult on the Raiders. I just think that our defense is going to be playing with a little bit more effort and aggressiveness in this game, and being able to limit them as much as possible. So I'll say like 20 to 13 is I think Washington wins. MVP?
You know what? Let's say our boy actually shines. I'm going to go with Bill Krosky-Merritt.
Okay. 2 touchdowns. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with 2 touchdowns. Maybe 87 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, I'm with you. I do think it could be Debo. Given that he's had a
He
hot
could have
start.
huge impact. Yeah.
He's had a hot start, and I think they're going to continue to go to the hot hand. And given with how much attention Terry has been getting, maybe the defense shies away from Terry a little bit, focuses more on Debo. Yeah, dude, I love that car. So I think that Debo could do it, and possibly 2 touchdowns. That'd be the way to go. But would absolutely love it. Parting words, sir.
Nothing. Everybody just needs to take a breath. As I explained earlier, we're lucky right now that this is happening at 1-1. We're 1-1. Of course, we'd like to be 2-0, but 1-1 is okay. And this is a good time. I know it's never a good time for your starting all-world quarterback, your star, to be hurt. But if he is, look, I'm not saying that the Raiders are going to be a walk in the park, but you would like it against them than, say, the Green Bay Packers or, some of these teams. So everything's going to be all right. There's still plenty of time. And if, God forbid, we do lose, coming back from 1-2 is still not a death sentence. You know what I mean? So, like, it's okay. Just get everybody right, get everybody healthy, and hopefully we can pull up the W.
Yep, and right now Washington is 22nd in the league on offense in passing yards, 8th in rushing yards, averaging 135 per game, and Washington's passing yards is averaging 195 yards per game. So this would be a big opportunity for Marcus Mariota to really showcase himself. How concerned are you with Jaden? I did want to ask you that question before we get out of here.
Not too concerned yet, but still, I mean, you hate to see it just because, I mean, you see the RG3 memes going around and stuff.
Yeah,
and
but like my biggest thing is that is a big surprise. He finished the game.
Right.
And the fact that they don't have him playing, it is somewhat worrisome because you do have to put the reality in there that last year he played on those broken ribs. We know that by now, common knowledge. Yeah. Is there something more? And that's
Knees are different, though,
that's my big concern.
Right. Knees are different. You can play with your ribs messed up, but having really hurting your knee, it could be very bad. So I understand why they would keep him out.
I thought the biggest surprise was that everyone thought it was the play where the guy was apparently doing a hip drop tackle, which it really truly wasn't. It was, even if that was called, that probably would have been made fun of online.
Yeah.
But if nobody really put it together that when he got flipped over, that was the one was the play.
Yeah,
like, dude, did you see what his knee did there? Like, he took all that contact, dude.
Yeah. It's scary, but hey. Hopefully he can stay healthy and he can get better using time. It's a long time off. It's almost 2 weeks off that he's going to be having. So,
which is the concerning part. Just given
that. Well, no, I think it's good that he can be. I'm saying it'll be 2 weeks by the time he comes back.
I got you. I'm saying that because he would need 2 weeks is the concerning part. It's like, wait, what is that then? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you to Reed for showing up for us tonight. Hall pulled a read on us, which is unfortunate. But we'll see you guys again on Monday evening recapping the game. So make sure you check us out then. I'm Kyle.
I don't know who I am anymore.
And if you made it this far, you're a freaking champion. Like and subscribe. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them on the live stream or reach out to us on IG or on Twitter through DMs. We'd love to hear from you and answer any question you have for us, guys. We appreciate you all. We love you all if you made it this far. Have a good one. Enjoy the game on Sunday. Washington football. Woo! What's up, everyone? This is Kyle from the Burgundy Zone. We are releasing our own merch to support the show. If you want to rock the Burgundy Zone logo or you want to see Reed's face on your shirt, we got it. We're starting with t-shirts, hoodies, and zip-up. So if you're a fan of the show, make sure you snag one before they are gone. Check out the link in our bio on Instagram, or you can find the link in the description of the video. Thanks again for all